Should you move abroad or should you travel full-time? If you're interested in leaving your country for a while, you may be wondering which way to do it. I'll share some tips on today's episode. Welcome to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. I'm your host, Heather Markel. If you're dreaming of full-time travel or moving abroad, but stuck at the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges, this podcast is for you. I'll help you trade overwhelm for information that gets you from down and stuck to up and going. You can dream about the travel lifestyle, or you can live the travel lifestyle. If you're ready to live it, then let's jump in together. If you're one of us who's disheartened, or some other word, by what's happening in the United States, or you're from another country where you're just fed up with how things are done, you may be seriously considering your options to leave. There are many ways to leave your country for long periods of time. Two of the most popular ways more recently are to move abroad or to travel full-time. To make your choice, it's important that you consider some key differences between those two options. So in this episode, I'm going to give you some explanations that can help you decide whether you should move abroad or travel full-time. So the first thing to consider is speed. How quickly do you want to leave? Because obviously both ways, whether you move abroad or travel full-time, do require advanced planning. And of course, financial budgeting. However, full-time travel otherwise can be almost as easy as packing a bag, buying a ticket, and going. Okay, maybe there's a few more steps, but pretty much you just have to leave and go someplace else. Whereas moving abroad has a lot more steps and takes a lot longer to pave the way to go. Clearly, I'm being very simplistic about the speed, but it definitely is faster to pull yourself together to travel full-time than it is to move abroad. The next consideration you want to think about are costs. So up front, there are much less costs to travel full-time. And then the rest of how much it costs is really up to you and how you travel. Are you going to have a luxury lifestyle, a budget lifestyle, travel cheaply, stay with friends, pay for accommodation, and so forth, right? So the cost of full-time travel is really in your hands. However, moving abroad has a lot of time and hired labor. To make the lifestyle happen, you're going to have to do a lot of pre-work, and you're going to have to work with different people along the way to make it happen. Also, you may be moving your belongings, so it's extremely expensive if you are taking things with you. Those moving and shipping fees alone are extremely expensive. So cost is another kind of way to look at this. And, do you have a shorter term vision to kind of leave for a while, come back? Do you want to travel indefinitely? So full-time travel on an indefinite level could be more expensive, but again, it really depends how you do it. Whereas moving abroad, clearly longer term, once you're moved, then the costs may reduce, but again, that really depends on your lifestyle. So cost is another, it's a little bit nebulous, but hopefully these few ideas and concepts give you a starting point to think about. Next, paperwork. So to travel full-time, you need a valid passport, and depending on your nationality, you'll need a visa. So to get a visa, you can often get them just days or weeks ahead of time. And again, depending on your nationality and where you're going, there's either a small fee or a larger fee. So a larger fee might be somewhere around $200 and a smaller fee could be $12. I just paid $12 to get my visa to go to the United Kingdom, for example. So If you're moving abroad, though, then instead of just applying for a visa as your paperwork, you're going to have to get an immigration attorney, which is another large fee, large cost that you'll be adding on. And it could take you months or longer to gather all of that required documentation, and then more time awaiting approval from immigration. So again, back to that speediness factor, then the speed at which you can go into your new lifestyle, as you can begin to see, it's a lot quicker with a full-time travel lifestyle than moving abroad. Another thing to think about is, how do you feel about having a home base? If you need a permanent, single home base, full-time travel then is not ideal for you. Because this is a lifestyle where, depending on the type of visa you travel on, because obviously, say, a nomad visa, a digital nomad visa can get you a longer period of time, but you still have a limited time allotment in a country before you have to move on. I'd say the most typical is a 3-month visa. I think there are countries where you even get a 30-day visa, but you can extend those. But again, it is a lifestyle of constantly looking at the time frame your visa allows, and then figuring out where you go next. Now, that's not to say that you can't do things like, say, a Schengen shuffle. So you can carefully track 90 days in the Schengen area and then leave for at least 90 days. And countries in South America and Central America make it fairly easy to leave for even less time and restart the clock. So if you're traveling as a full-time traveler, you might find a city that you really like, and you might plunk down for the 90 days and then leave for a bit and come back to that city. So it's not quite a full-time home base, but it's something similar if you want to do it that way. Now, moving abroad, you have one residence, most likely, and you can store everything there and have more of a feeling of home, even if it's in a different country. So if you're looking for that real established long-term, I just want to plunk down, put my stuff there, and be able to come home every day to the same place, then moving abroad is probably a better option for you. Another one to consider is, how important is it to you to have deep friendships? Because full-time travel is definitely a more transient lifestyle. So you'll have your friends from home, wherever you're leaving, that some of them, no matter what, will be your real close friends, no matter how long you're away, and other ones might become a little bit less close, because depending on how long you're away. Now, when you travel, you're going to meet great people, but then you're going to have to leave. So staying in touch, like with your friends from back home, is going to be via text message or Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever method you use, but it's not in person. So naturally, it's not as easy to maintain deeper friendships if you're traveling full time. Whereas moving abroad, you're in the same place. So you can spend time with the same friends repeatedly over long amounts of time, meaning that it's easier to have those much deeper friendships. So if that's important to you and it's a deal breaker, then moving abroad in this case would be a better choice for you. So a final thing to think about is whether you want to be an immigrant or whether you want to be a traveler. Because these days, considering that so many countries are fed up with immigrants, you are essentially becoming one if you move abroad. So if you're a traveler, you're just visiting a country and then you're seen as more of a tourist. Whereas if you move there, then you're kind of more of an immigrant, right? And tourists are often viewed as fueling economies. So this is just something to consider longer term, being the way the world is moving right now. Full-time travel can also be a great bridge to immigration, right? So if you decide that you want to move abroad while you're doing the paperwork and so forth, you could also be traveling the world instead of staying one place where you don't feel safe, as another option. The decision of whether to move abroad or travel full-time, as you see, has many moving parts. So think about some of the impacts of each lifestyle in order to make the right choice for you. Remember to check the resources below this episode for helpful links, and I hope you found these tips really helpful, and I will catch you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. If you loved it, please leave a review and let us know. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Check out the show notes for important resources related to this episode, and come visit us at travellifestylecoach.com to learn more great information. If you're ready to get started with the lifestyle, go to moneyfortravelbootcamp.com, where you can learn all the strategies to afford this amazing lifestyle. Talk to you next week.